Hey guys, it's Lisa Whippler with Growing Generations. I'm here continuing our ongoing series on Growing Generations process, from the surrogates to the donors, and now we are talking about something today that is not only near and dear to my heart, but the reason that most surrogates come to Growing Generations, and that's the matching process. It is super exciting. I feel super privileged to be able to be the matching wizard, if you will, and I'm super excited to share this with you today. So one thing I want to remind you to do is, if you're just now getting Growing Generations videos and you're having to go back to look at them after they're done, all you have to do is click follow us and you'll be notified the next time we go live. And we do plan on going live a lot, and we do plan on having more of these interactive conversations. So I see we already have people joining us. Hi, Heather. Thanks for joining. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone feels really comfortable if you join us today and asking any question that you want to know about matching. So one of the things I love about Growing Generations is that we are very transparent in how we do things and why. And the matching sometimes seems to be this real mysterious thing about, well, how do you pick a couple for us? And how does an intended parent choose a surrogate? But the reality is that there's a science behind it. So I would love to be able to explain that to you today, answer any questions that you have along the way, and hopefully by the end of today's video, you'll really understand what goes on behind the scenes to find surrogates a perfect couple and our couples their perfect surrogate. So I see we have a lot of people joining us. Hi, Anna. Hi, Kelly. We also have Nicole. Hey, how are you? We have Harley joining us, and looks like we have a lot of people joining already, so that's awesome. So I wanted to just start off by saying that we put a lot of time and energy in finding you the perfect match. I get the question all the time, well, I've heard that you just grab the first couple that's available and that's who you match me with, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I know that one of the things that I find really personal to myself is feeling like I am putting a couple and a surrogate together with the hopes that they have an amazing journey. And there's so much more that goes into that than just what looks good on paper. So where I thought we would start is, what are the basic things that we look at when someone needs a match? And I'll go through those individually. If you have any questions along the way, you can stop me, and I'll be happy to keep an eye on your questions down there, and we'll go through everything. So what usually happens is I get notified by a surrogate case specialist that she is ready for a match. And we'll go through a little bit later in the video exactly what point you're able to look at intended parent profiles. So the very first thing that I have to look at is, what state do you reside in? And it may seem really odd that that's the first question I look at, but the legalities involved in surrogacy are very extreme, and it can even vary from county to county in a particular state that you live in. So we have an amazing, extremely professional legal team that we work every day with, and they give us, you know, some basic ideas, but every single match that I put together has to first go through the legal team. So even if I think a surrogate would be perfect for a particular couple, if the legalities don't work, then we can't make the match. So state's very important for a birth certificate, whether the couple can get their name directly on it, whether it requires some additional steps. It's really important because, you know, we want everyone to be able to walk away from this feeling like it was just an amazing experience, and safety is one of our #1 concerns. So what state you reside in is extremely important. So the next thing that I have to look at is your insurance preferences. So if you come into the program, you have insurance of your own, then I can match you with a couple that's willing to work with a surrogate who has their own insurance. There's other insurance options that we look at. There is the ACA policy, which is the Affordable Care Act, and that's coming up for open enrollment right now. And there's also New Life Agency, or Lloyd's of London policy. So each of these insurance options come with a particular price tag. And unfortunately for some couples, they're not able to proceed with a surrogate who might have one of those more expensive policies. So it's really important that we work with you to find out whether your personal insurance will cover, whether New Life Agency will have to be your insurance, or during the open enrollment period, we need to get you an Affordable Care Act policy. That ACA policy can vary again from state to state. So there's a lot that goes into looking at your personal insurance and whether or not we can use it. I want to make sure we see what other kind of questions we have. Hey, Krista, Heidi, hey. We also have Sunny. Krista asks, if you live in West Virginia, would you qualify? So I'm assuming she's asking if she'll qualify to be a surrogate. Absolutely. Now for an Affordable Care Act policy, I'm not sure. We'll have to look and see what county she lives in. We'll also have to see if she has insurance of her own and if the Affordable Care Act will allow her to have an additional policy. So again, there's different layers to all of this stuff. So let's see if we've missed any questions. I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. Okay, so now we know what state you live in, and that tells me what intended parent type you can work with, what family type, and I know what your insurance is. So the next thing I'm going to look at is your age. And while you might ask, well, why does it matter how old I am if you've accepted me into your program? Don't I qualify? And the answer is yes, of course, you do qualify. However, we have intended parents who have their own preferences, and we have intended parents that are working with particular reproductive specialists that have their own guidelines as well. Now, we follow the ASRM guidelines, the American Society of Reproductive Medicine, and they do say a surrogate could be up to the age of 45, so 21 to 45. However, in my matching experience, and that tends to ebb and flow between couples that come into the program and what's important to them, but we're finding lately that more couples are erring on the side of younger surrogates, up to 38 and 39, as well as reproductive doctors. So it's really a bigger picture thing when we're looking at the matching process. So ages 21 to 38, 39, and it really depends on which couple you're wanting to work with. So for example, I wouldn't send you a couple that I knew you would fall in love with if you're 37, knowing that they want a surrogate that's under 35. So that's one thing that I'll consider. Another thing that is really important to some intended parents and to some reproductive doctors is your BMI, or your body mass index. So again, Growing Generations does accept a higher BMI than some doctors accept. The reason we do that is, again, we follow the ASRM guidelines. So we say, if you're within those guidelines, you're welcome with our program. However, that doesn't mean that we can match you with a couple who might have a lower BMI request, or a couple who's working with a reproductive specialist that has a lower BMI requirement. And those are really specific to those specific doctors and couples, and it's my job to know what those requirements are. So again, I don't want to send you someone who you fall in love with only to find out your BMI doesn't fit their doctor, your age doesn't fit their doctor, the couple can't afford a New Life Agency policy, or your state doesn't align with their legal needs. So now we're up to 4 or 5 different things that I'm looking at when I'm just trying to find you the perfect couple. So, hey Heather, and we also have Heather who asked the question, great question Heather, will I lose my personal insurance if I have to get an NLA policy or an ACA policy? So great question. And the answer is no. So well, I guess it depends with the ACA. So that's kind of an iffy question. Some states will not allow you to have an ACA policy if you already have a policy that will cover you personally with your health insurance. So we'll have to look into that based on state to state. Typically, we can get you an ACA policy if you already have a policy that covers. But again, that's not 100% across the board. We happen to have an insurance specialist here at Growing Generations, Andrew, and he would help us identify if you needed your own policy, and if you had to, sort of let it go in order to have an ACA policy that would cover surrogacy. Now, NLA, absolutely. You do not lose your personal insurance using NLA. In fact, NLA is a surrogacy-only policy. So let's say you have your own insurance. We get you an NLA policy because your personal insurance does not cover surrogacy. You go out and somehow accidentally break your hand, your personal insurance is going to cover that, not the NLA policy. So the answer is iffy on ACA. We'll have to check into it, but NLA, absolutely. So thank you, Heather, for that question. Hey, Andrew, I was just talking about you a few seconds ago. So expect all kinds of insurance questions from the internet now. You're welcome. Oh, Sunny has a question. What if I'm sent a profile for a parent that I do not want to work with? Do I have a choice as the surrogate? Absolutely. And I'm going to get to that in just a second as well, talking about when the profile exchange happens, what your options are. So we've talked about some of the basics that I look at when I'm looking for you, the perfect couple, and that was your state that you live in, the insurance that you have, your age, your BMI, and whether your policy is going to be like a new life agency, kind of what all of that is. So let's go ahead and go into Sunny's question. So and then we'll kind of double back on some of the things I want to discuss about profile exchanges. So if I send you a profile of an intended parent and it doesn't feel right to you, or maybe there's something specific in there that is not aligned with what you're looking for your journey, it's completely fine to say, this isn't the right couple for me. And as a matter of fact, we encourage it. We really want you to be very transparent with us about what your expectations are for this journey. And it's always my goal and my desire to make sure that you're matched with a couple that you really feel like this is why I'm doing this. So thanks, Sunny, for the question. So let's go into that a little bit. When another really important part of this matching for me is the preferences that we all come to the table with. So some of you may not know me, but I've been a surrogate 3 times, and I've been an egg donor as well. So when I'm looking at matching, and I hope that my surrogates feel this, I'm looking at intended parent profiles as a surrogate, and I'm trying to put myself in your shoes. Based on what you say you're looking for, does this seem like the couple that would be perfect for you? And there's a lot of things that surrogates take into consideration when they're thinking about this journey. I mean, we all have a picture in our head of what surrogacy is supposed to look like for us. And we as surrogates learn really quickly, we need to be flexible, we need to be organic. But there are some things that we can talk about that affect your match and how soon I can match you. Like, is that couple out there that you're looking for, or are you asking for things that are hard to find? First, let's see if we've had anybody new join. Hey, Amanda, thank you for joining. So from a surrogate's perspective, these are some of the things that we talk about with you in terms of what you're looking for. Of course, kind of the number one question out the gate is, what about a relationship with my intended parents? And believe it or not, surrogates are all over the spectrum. I have surrogates who say, ultimately, I really would love a family that I could stay connected with, that I could visit on the baby's first birthday, all the way down to, I just want to help somebody. I don't have to be involved forever in their family. A Christmas card, once a year would be great. And we also have intended parents that fall on that spectrum as well. So my advice to you is, as you're going through the admissions process and you have many opportunities to talk about what you want, be very honest. I think surrogates have a tendency to want to please, and we want to say what we think people want to hear. And at the end of the day, that sets you up for a lot of disappointment. So if you say in your profile, when we specifically ask you what kind of relationship do you want with your intended parent after the baby's born, and your answer is, oh, it's up to the intended parents, then I'm going to match you with someone who has their own opinion, because in your profile, you didn't have an opinion. It was like whatever was up, whatever intended parents wanted. And so I thought that was a good match for you. If you really feel strongly one way or the other, be honest, and your surrogate specialist as well as myself will work with you and really trying to find an intended parent that we feel like will give you the journey you're looking for. Another thing that might affect what you're looking for and how quickly I can match you is if you have a preference about an embryo transfer. So for example, the single embryo transfer versus a multiple embryo transfer. And while it seems like a really easy question or something really easy to match, the problem with it is that a lot of times intended parents, even if they believe they're going to do a single embryo transfer, they don't actually know until the day they get in there and the embryologist comes out and says, hey, we got one great embryo that looks fabulous, let's transfer it. Or they come out and say, this embryo looks pretty good, but really I think we should transfer two because I'm just not really sure. And now if you've said you're a single embryo transfer only, you've taken away that chance for that intended parent to possibly put in two when they really thought they would only put in one. So is it impossible to find you a couple who absolutely wants to transfer one at a time? No, it's not impossible. We do have couples who say, we're going to do single embryo transfers, but a lot of them will say, please match me with someone who's comfortable putting in two and possibly carrying twins if they both take, then someone who we know is going to limit us and limit our choices. So it looks like we've had some people. Let's see. It says, hey, Erica, thank you for the question. She says, I had an oversupply of breast milk with my first child and donated over 20,000 ounces to a milk bank. Good for you, girl. Do you ever have parents that want the surrogate to supply milk after the birth? Is that something I could request during the matching process? So absolutely. And hey, Patty, thanks for joining me. So to answer Erica's question, and I get this a lot actually, yes, we do have couples who say, we would love if our surrogate wants to pump breast milk for us. As a matter of fact, out of my 3 journeys, I did end up pumping and shipping actually to my last couple. It was kind of labor intensive, but they were super appreciative. And, they provided all the materials. I would just pump, I would freeze, and then ship my breast milk. So we do have parents that are interested in that if their surrogate is. And again, this is all part of what I take into consideration when I'm trying to find the perfect match for you. So for example, if Erica was my surrogate and I was trying to match her, our intended parents fill out a questionnaire that talks about things like this. And if they specifically say no, we plan on using formula only, that wouldn't be my first choice for Erica. Now, it doesn't mean I would pass up that intended parent if I thought they aligned on everything else and that they had like really good personalities that I thought would blend well. I may go to Erica and say, hey, listen, I got this couple. The only way that they don't match what you're looking for is that they're really not interested in breast milk. So then Erica can say, well, you know what? I donated it before, I can donate it again. This couple looks fabulous. I would love to proceed. So, that's part of my job to look at all of these things and try to make sure that all the puzzle pieces fit together really nicely. So it looks like I might have another question. So Heather has asked, how long do intended parents typically want breast milk provided for them? Another great question. And it also depends. So for example, I pumped and shipped for 8 weeks. I have actually had surrogates tell me 6 months later that they're still pumping and shipping. We have a surrogate that's going to be returning with the same intended parent for a sibling project, and the only thing stopping them right now is 6 months later, she's still pumping for them. So it really depends. Again, it's a preference, it's a discussion, something that we'll talk about at a match meeting, but things can evolve and organically move to something that looks a little bit different once you actually get into it. So, so let's keep going. And thank you guys for all your questions. You've been amazing. So another thing that I look at when I am trying to match a couple with a surrogate is if the surrogate says, you know, I'm completely open to the intended parents having all the testing that they feel necessary for their pregnancy, but I really don't want to do an amniocentesis unless it's medically indicated. So basically what that means is if your couple has a medical necessity for an amnio, maybe they didn't PGD, you know, pre-test their embryos, or there's some indication that, you know, they just really want that extra comfort that the baby's okay, you know, I really don't want to do an amnio. It's risky, it's, you know, all these things. So I wouldn't want to match you with a couple who I knew wanted an amnio, regardless of whether it is technically medically indicated. And sometimes I find this a cultural thing too. So overseas, medically necessary amnios are really not a thing because everyone does an amnio. It's just a doctor's way to ensure that the pregnancy is healthy. And so if you know, some international couples think it medically necessary because it's what everyone else is doing around them. So that's something to consider as well. But I do try to make sure that everyone's on the same page in terms of an amniocentesis. The same goes for selective reduction and termination. And these are really important but delicate discussions that we all have to have. So for example, we may have couples that come into the program who say, you know, I don't think I would terminate for any reason, to include Down syndrome. However, I really don't know until I have a situation where my surrogate is pregnant, there's some medical complications, and I want to gather all the information that I can get from all the doctors and then make an informed decision. So it kind of goes back to not really knowing until you're in the moment, like with a single embryo transfer. Even if a couple wouldn't terminate for any reason, most of them want to be matched with a surrogate who's going to allow them to make those decisions. So most will find if they apply to our program and they are against termination altogether or against reduction for multiple pregnancy, we may not accept you into the program. And that is literally based on the intended parents that we have. So that's something really important to consider. Now, it is okay if you say, you know, I'm okay with reduction from triplets to twins for a healthier pregnancy. I'm okay with termination if there's medical issues, but I'm not okay reducing healthy twins to a singleton. That I can absolutely match you. Most couples would not reduce healthy twins, although, you know, every case is different and they have their own reasons for that. The great news about Growing Generations and how I do matching is that I'm completely transparent with you about the different choices intended parents might make and why. And those intended parents are very transparent with us in terms of their own profile and their own questionnaire, why they would make the decisions and what decisions they feel like they would make. So again, we're always trying to make sure that everyone aligns with each other in all of these important facets. So, hey, Kelly, thank you for joining me. So we'll keep going. Now, another thing that is really important when a surrogate fills out her application, we ask her, and I believe it's literally like one of the top 10 questions, is what family type are you interested in working with? So Growing Generations is amazing. We're extremely diverse. We welcome all family types. And that's something that I've had my own personal growth in over the 22 years I've been involved in surrogacy. And we have a lot of family types. So what I mean by that is we have straight couples, we have gay couples, we have single men, single women, we have all facets. We have international couples, some speak English, some do not, and we have a fabulous program that's called the HEART program, in which one of, or possibly both, of the parents are HIV positive, and it's a fascinating, amazing program that we also have. So we will ask you specifically, are there any of these couple types that you're not comfortable with? are there any of these couple types that you would like more information about? And we factor that into what you're looking for. And then one other question, I don't get this very often from surrogates, but from time to time we will have surrogates say that she's not sure if she's comfortable having the couple in the delivery room. And of course, most couples want to be in the delivery room. They want to see their baby be born. And most surrogates absolutely want the couple to be there. That's kind of, for most of us, that's what you envision. Even, you know, sometimes you don't even envision the journey. You just envision, this is the couple I'm going to help. And here's my picture of me seeing the look on their face when they see that baby for the first time. So again, if you were to not think you wanted a couple in the delivery room, I would then try to find a couple who might say in their profile that they would leave that up to the surrogate and what her comfort level was. Most of the surrogates, by the time we get there, change their mind and they have a different perspective, but it's absolutely something that I would encourage you to be very honest about, as I would all of these issues. So Erica asks, do you guys prefer that surrogates are done having their own personal children before becoming a surrogate? Another great question. So I don't necessarily prefer. I think that it's definitely part of the discussion. You know, we want to make sure that surrogates understand that there is risk involved in any pregnancy. IVF or surrogacy does not increase that risk, but certainly there's the same risk as you having another pregnancy of your own. So if you think you want to have more children, it's definitely a discussion to have. So what if you deliver and you have complications and you can't carry again? Is that going to be okay with you? One of the most important parts of what we do at Growing Generations across the board, every department, is safety first. You know, we want to make sure that you go into this, that we are being safe and that we're working with the best professionals and that you're fully informed about all the risks as well as the benefits of proceeding in our program. So what I would advise is, if you're not sure and you really know that you want more children, that you have a serious discussion about the what if. You know, what if something happens and I can't carry again? Will we be okay with that? Will I be okay with that? Will our family be okay with that? So thank you, Erica. Kelly asks a really great question. What if a surrogate is wanting to help a gay couple, but her boyfriend or husband is not okay with it? So this happens frequently, in which a surrogate might be more comfortable with additional family types than her partner or personal close family is okay with. So it's extremely important. As a matter of fact, it's imperative that your support system is in fact supportive, and that is about all facets of your surrogate journey. So if they don't want you to carry twins, if they don't want you to work with a specific family type, if for example, your partner says, I don't want anybody else in the delivery room, if your partner's against termination and you're okay with it, all of these things have to be discussed. So what I would say is, if this is a boyfriend, a husband, a partner, an immediate family member, your mother, your sister, someone who's going to be an integral part of your support system, helping you with the kids, helping you with anything, then you would need to make sure that you have these conversations and that everyone comes together on the same page before you proceed. So, I mean, there might be a balance. You might say, okay, if you really want me to work with a straight couple, I'm okay with that. But I would suggest that you have an additional discussion why your partner or family member is not comfortable with you caring for a gay couple. Is it because they are okay with gay parenting, but for them and their comfort level, they want you to work with a straight couple? Or are they against gay parenting in general? I can tell you that we are a very diverse staff, and we are a very diverse company, and we welcome all family types. And I do not think that someone who is inherently against gay parenting or alternate families would be comfortable being part of our family. So I would advise that you have those additional discussions, then have additional discussions with us, and see if we're both equally a good fit for each other. So thank you, Kelly. That was an awesome question. Hey, Erica, thanks for joining. So from a surrogate's perspective, I kind of went over just now several things that surrogates are discussing with us in terms of what they're looking for in their preferences. So we went over relationships, we went over a single embryo transfer and multiple embryo transfers and why that's important and why that's a little bit more difficult to match. The amniocentesis and the selective reduction and termination, the different family types that you have to choose from, and then how you feel about your couple being in the delivery room. So I want to switch gears a little bit. And I'll watch for any of your questions in case I miss anything, that we talk a little bit about, well, what do intended parents look for? Because again, I think that, you know, we come to surrogacy and we're super excited, and really all we want to do is see a parent's profile, and we think we'll read it and we'll love them and we'll know. So what does intended parents go through in terms of looking for a surrogate? And I can tell you that some of the things are surprisingly equal to what we as surrogates are concerned about, but then we sort of come into it with feeling and emotion, but they also have to come into it with, you know, sort of their head on their shoulders. They have to consider money, they have to consider the legalities, and they have to picture in their head this woman who is probably across the country and entrusted with their most precious gift, and how that will feel to them, and how that looks. So, and we'll talk about that in a little bit when I go over your profile and how to create one that really kind of shows who you are. So intended parents also are, you know, really interested in a surrogate that would match their personality. If they are, like a lot of us surrogates are, extremely busy, they may say that they want updates and they want contact and communication, but you know that it's okay with them if they don't have a lot of communication and a lot of constant updates and interaction. They are very honest about that, so I think it's really great, and I look at that a lot. I don't want to match a surrogate who specifically says that during the pregnancy she wants a lot of contact with a couple who I know is extremely busy, and even though they're super appreciative, they don't have the time, because I don't want to set anyone up for disappointment. So that's one thing. And then another thing that they're usually looking for is the financial aspect. Unfortunately, surrogacy is very expensive, and working with surrogates in a state like California, where we provide a higher compensation, is, you know, going to cost them more. Obviously, a surrogate who doesn't have her own insurance and has to go with that Affordable Care Act policy or the New Life Agency policy is significantly more expensive, and they may not be able to work with a surrogate who needs those additional policies. Legal, of course. So, for example, even though a couple may be able to work in a particular state, if it requires additional legal steps in order for them to obtain a birth certificate, they may not want to work in that state, even though technically they could. And, you know, a lot of couples come to this with their own thoughts about what constitutes a good surrogate. So, for example, we accept surrogates who've had 5 pregnancies, and this will be their 6th. Some intended parents think, you know, that's a lot of pregnancies, and even though you guys know what you're doing and you've been doing this for a long time, and ASRM says it's okay, we really want a surrogate who's had no more than 3 pregnancies, or we really want a surrogate who's under the age of 35. We want a surrogate who has BMI under 30. So Google is our best friend, worst friend, and if you Google a lot of the things that we look at in terms of matching and we look at in terms of bringing you into the program, you will find there's a lot out there that if I were to be an intended parent would probably scare me too if I didn't know. So those are some of the things that intended parents are looking at when they're looking for a surrogate in our program. So I just want to make sure nobody has any questions so far. Looks like I've covered them all. Sorry, I just want to make sure I don't forget anybody. Oh, Heather has a question. So Heather asks, do I have to deliver in another country if the IP is international? So thank you, Heather. It was a really great question and something that I wanted to discuss a little bit too when I was going over family types. So the answer is no. You will deliver in the state in which you reside. So if we match you as a Texas surrogate, you deliver to Texas. And it doesn't matter where your couple resides. It only matters where you reside. So as a matter of fact, there will be a part in your contract that says after 26 weeks gestation, you can't leave the state. So let's pretend that you're on the border of Texas and Oklahoma. After 26 weeks, even if it's 15 minutes, you can't go to Oklahoma. You can't go over that border because unless we specifically try to figure out, it was a bad example in Oklahoma anyway, but we try to make sure that you stay in the state in which we know legally the couple can obtain the birth certificate and have the easiest legal process. So it would be counterproductive for you to go not only out of your state, but out of the country. And also in your contract, it says you, in fact, can't go out of the country for the same reasons, and it's all about the legal process. So no, you do not. However, we do have an interesting, which I find interesting, sometimes we'll get a couple from a country that might require a surrogate to appear for finalization of parental rights. I would find that amazing based on a couple of the countries that it is, to be able to go there, see the couple's country and where the family's going to be. And I would find that fascinating. But for some surrogates, it doesn't make sense. If you have really young kids and you've never traveled and it's not something you wouldn't be interested in, and that's my job to look at all of these different things to see if it's a perfect fit. So it looks like we have a couple more questions. Sunny, yes. Sunny asks, if a couple is international, how do I communicate with them? So another great question. So many good questions. So many ways. First of all, not all of our international clients don't speak English. We have a lot of international clients that are multilingual. So it's always possible that you get a couple that can also speak English as well as their language of origin. If you get a couple that does not speak English, there's so many ways to communicate nowadays. There's an amazing app called WeChat that we use for a lot of international clients. They literally type in what they want to say, it translates it and sends it to you almost real time, like a texting app. So that's super awesome. And you also will have, let's say you pick an international client that doesn't speak your language. We have many multilingual case managers, and those case specialists are assigned to clients that they can communicate with. So for example, if you're matched with a couple who speak Spanish, they are going to be matched with our amazing case specialist, Jessica, who speaks that in a bunch of other languages. And she's going to be able to talk to you and do some translation if necessary, but also, again, there's so many apps now. You can easily communicate directly with your intended parents. You can email, you can, there's just so many ways to communicate now that I personally don't really find that communication is an issue. And when it comes to the birth, you kind of have the same thing. The longer I've been involved in surrogacy, the more fascinating I find working with international or multicultural families are. It's really great for your kids. You get to learn about, a new country. So I highly recommend you not to be afraid of international couples, just worrying about how you can communicate. And you can always talk more about that with your case specialist. You can even say, I'm not really sure if I would work with an international couple. Can I see an international couple's profile? And I'll be happy to share one with you. And then we can discuss, okay, if you work with this couple, what does that mean communication-wise? Who would you communicate with? How would you communicate? And then you can make a decision based on that. I recently had a surrogate come to the program who wanted to work with a couple who spoke Mandarin because her daughter is in a Mandarin immersion program. And even though she herself doesn't speak it, she thought it would be great for her daughter. And that was amazing. I loved matching her. Okay, so hey, Ruby. So we have Ruby. And Ruby's question is, when would you meet your intended parents? Which is a fabulous, fabulous question. So it's different for everyone. You will first meet your intended parents via video conference for your match meeting. And that'll be facilitated by a Growing Generations specialist. And you'll go over all these important things that we've discussed today. What kind of relationship do you want? What type of, delivery are you looking for? Are you okay transferring multiple embryos? What your thoughts are on amnio. So that's always done as part of the matching process. Some occasions it is an in-person meeting. It just depends on everyone's availability and flexibility, but more often than not these days, it's done via video match meeting. And then there's always the next opportunity to meet each other in an embryo transfer. Again, that's a discussion that's had during the match meeting, and whether everyone's availability is there to meet at that match meeting. But there's always a rare occasion that you physically in person don't meet your intended parent until the delivery. But again, that is case-by-case basis. Everyone's in that discussion and everyone agrees that that works for everyone. So part of the matching process is my job to figure out what everyone's looking for, what's okay with certain people, what's not okay with certain people, and make sure everyone's aligned on it. So Erica has another great question. So I live in Missouri and work in Kansas. Since I'm right on the border, would I not be able to be a surrogate since after 26 weeks, I would have to leave the state every day for work, even though it's only a short drive? Amazing question. We actually have this happen a lot. So for her, laws are different in Kansas than they are in Missouri. It's a very specific parent type that I can match in Kansas. So I believe it's a married straight couple using their own genetics, for example. Even though she lives in Missouri, which is a little more flexible, I would never want to match her with a couple that if she were at work in Kansas, just 15 minutes away, and her water breaks, an ambulance driver is not going to say, oh, you have to deliver in Missouri because you're a surrogate? Great, we'll just drive over the border. I don't want to take that chance. You know, we want to be safe. Safety is our number one, motto. So I would only want to match her with a couple that's okay with their surrogate delivering in Kansas, and that also can be accepted in Missouri. And we would want to make sure that the couple's fully aware that she'll be crossing over the border for work every day. And so I still could match Erica, but it would need to be in the contract that she's allowed to cross the border, that she's within her hospital range, because that's another thing. Is she going to deliver in Kansas? Is she going to deliver in Missouri? Do we have hospitals in both states that are surrogate friendly, that are covered in her insurance? So we would have to research both states, and just in case, it depends on where she delivers, and making sure that that's compatible with her insurance, and that the intended parents are okay with both options. So thank you, Erica. So Harley has another great question that we didn't cover. Because of the increased deployment cycle of our active duty personnel, do you find intended parents less likely to work with an active duty family? And sadly, the answer is yes. So I'm a former Marine. I am married to a retired Marine, and my son is a former Marine as well. So I'm really well versed in this. We do accept active duty members, not the surrogate themselves, but the partner. We do not accept active duty surrogates for a multitude of reasons. But if a surrogate spouse is active duty, we ask a few really important questions. Number one, how long have you been at your duty station? If you just got there and you know you're not going to be leaving for at least 3 years, we can probably proceed, and intended parent's going to be comfortable that you are not going to get orders with your partner during that surrogacy process and get moved to a state that's not going to be surrogacy friendly. We do discuss deployments. Is this your first, contract with your husband? And are you used to being separated? Are you not used to being separated? Your partner does need to be able to go through the screening process with you, coming to Los Angeles, meeting with the counselor. And so we want to make sure that they're available for that. And again, it's just about a discussion. We want to make sure that everyone is safe. We don't want a surrogate who has not used to her husband being gone suddenly being deployed in the middle of her pregnancy and it being extremely stressful. So we just have discussions. If you have been on your post, or you've been on your base for a couple of years and you know that your partner is up for orders here in the next year and a half, maybe even 2 years, we want to look at that and make sure that we're not going to get into a situation. So thanks, Harley. So let's see. So Elizabeth has a question. As far as the birth goes, sorry, I had to read it and understand what she was asking me. So as far as the birth process goes, is the surrogate's birthing preferences something that can be taken into consideration during the matching process? Absolutely. Very important. So again, with preferences, surrogates have their idea of what they want their delivery to look like. Intended parents have an idea of what the environment they want their baby to be born in looks like. I can tell you that sometimes surrogates come to the program where they've had birthed at home themselves, they've used a midwife, they've used epidurals, they've not had epidurals, they want, you know, to try to VBAC, they prefer a repeat C-section. There's all kinds of things that are very important in the birth process. And so the answer is, if it has anything to do with you and your body, if you want an epidural, if you want just a shot, if you want to try natural delivery, that's fine. But we do require that you deliver in a hospital with an attending OB, and there's a discussion process about the rest. So, you know, the couple can say, listen, I see you had a C-section last time. You know, I really would prefer to be matched with a surrogate. If they've had one C-section, we go ahead and go with a C-section. I don't want to take the increased risk of a VBAC. So you as a surrogate has an opportunity at that time to say, well, I really want you to match me with a couple who is comfortable with me attempting a VBAC. Or, you know, if a couple has a specific preference, we work that out. So Elizabeth, to answer your question, yes, we definitely take that into consideration. We want you to think, though, your pregnancy and delivery is different than this shared pregnancy and delivery. You know, what we might be comfortable with as mothers with our own babies and our own deliveries, someone else might not be comfortable with. And as a surrogate, I felt like being a parent encompasses all these decisions that come from before that baby's even created to testing to delivery. And I feel like this is another aspect of things that we have to be able to discuss and possibly compromise on, at least have some flexibility. And I think it's really important if you have specific delivery preferences, we discuss them. No home births, no birthing centers. You know, we want that couple's going to want to make sure if you have any complications at all, we're on standby with a NICU and people who can take care of their baby. So yes, but definitely something we discuss. So Kelly asks, will I have to eat organic or stop eating lunch meat? Another great question. And again, it goes back to flexibility and what my job is in terms of finding the right match. So some couples will say to us, listen, I really would like my surrogate to eat organic. And I have a lot of surrogates who say, I would love to eat organic, but either A, it's super expensive and my family can't afford organic for everyone, or I don't have anything around me that really has a lot of organic products. So if you're not in an area that has, you know, the Whole Foods and Publix, things like that. So intended parents will say to us, listen, we really want our surrogate to organic. We're willing to provide her a stipend to purchase organic food. And then, you know, we talk to the surrogates, hey, this couple wants you to eat organic. They're willing to pay for organic foods. Are you willing to do it? Some surrogates say no. And they said, listen, it's just too much against, or too much extra that I'll have to go through to drive out of my way to find organic products. And if I'm going to make that promise, I'm going to want to fulfill it. And I'm just not sure I can. Other surrogates say, absolutely. I would love to do that. And in terms of lunch meat, same thing. Couples can request anything they want to request. You can request anything you want to request. The ultimate answer is, can we find someone that's willing to go through that? Now, we do guide couples, just like we guide you when you're filling out your profile on what's typical that a surrogate's okay with and what typically we're not okay with. But, you know, I don't feel it's ever my place to say no for a surrogate in terms of a profile or for a couple in terms of, you know, in terms of a surrogate. So thank you, Kelly. Hey, Jamie, thanks for joining. So I just have a few more things I want to go over. And we're coming up on 49 minutes here, and I was worried I wouldn't have enough to cover for you guys. But I did want to cover briefly your surrogate profile. So, you know, once you are in the process, one of the first things we let you have access to is your profile. And what that means is you're going to upload pictures of yourself, your family, You're going to answer some essay questions that talks to the intended parents about, you know, who you are, what you do. You get to brag about your kids. You get to brag about your partner if you have one. And if you don't, you get to talk about your amazing support system that's going to help you through this process. So surrogates say to me all the time, I hate talking about myself. I never take pictures of myself. I'm always the one behind the camera. But I really encourage you, because you have weeks to do this, I encourage you to take the time to fill this out. And remember, this is like a first impression that you're giving of yourself and of your family. When a couple gets your profile, you know, they're getting all these other documents about the legalities of your state and the financial aspects. And, you know, they want to open something and envision, is this the woman that's I'm going to entrust to carry my baby? And you want to be that woman. So your specialist will guide you on some things that you can embellish on and talk about. And we will help you in terms of the essay questions. We kind of guide you in things that they're looking for. So I always say, when you're doing your profile, remember that you need to be really authentic in what you're looking for, really authentic in your answers, so that I can find the best match for you. Use pictures that are indicative of your family and what you do. I've been getting a lot of Snapchat lately, girls, and although they are adorable, remember this is sort of a first look. So you can send Snapchat photos later, but I always say, you know, send some really fun pictures so that you also are showing who you are. You're a mother, you know, you probably work really hard every day. You're very mature, and we want that to come across as well. So we do advise no Snapchat photos, and we do advise that you take the time, if you don't have any good family photos, have someone take you out to the park and just snap some really natural photos of you and your family, pictures of your kids, things like that. So when we put that together for you, it looks really great, and we'll share that back with you so that you can look at it, make any changes that you want, and we make sure it's a good snapshot of your family. And then once we have your profile, and once you're at a particular stage in your admissions process, which can be fairly quickly, it's time for you to look at intended parent profiles. So we've gone over all the different things that I need to look at to find you a perfect match, and now it's time. So what happens? I look at all the things that we just discussed, and it took us 52 minutes just to go over everything, so you can imagine how long it takes to find you the perfect match. I start going down my list, and I start looking at all these things and trying to put your puzzle piece together, the puzzle that I create just for you, every single person. And I say, okay, who would Kelly want to work with? I need to find someone that has this relationship that she's looking for, that only wants to do a single embryo transfer, that doesn't want to do a non-medically indicated amnio. She's looking for a gay couple, and she wants her couple to be in the delivery room, and if they want breast milk, she's cool with that. And since she happens to be from California and has her own insurance, there's a lot of options here for her. So hey Stephanie, thanks for joining. So I start looking at my list, and I come to a couple that I think is perfect for you. So what I'm going to do is grab their profile. I'm going to grab their questionnaire, which is sort of a snapshot for you of what they're looking for in terms of communication, what they would do with a multiple pregnancy, would they reduce, would they keep it, all those kind of cool questions. They also do their profiles. They tell you a little bit about themselves, how they got together, more about their family. It's really cool. And either myself or one of your surrogate admission specialists will send that profile and questionnaire to you. And then you're typically going to have one of three reactions, right? You're going to open this profile and you're going to say, oh my God, Lisa got it right. This couple is exactly what I'm looking for. And probably immediately you're going to email one of us back and say, that's it, I love them, let's do it. One other response you might have when you open it is say, oh, you know, they're amazing, I think they'll be great parents, but I can't put my finger on it, but I just don't think they're the right couple for me. And so that's what you'll come back to us with is, I can't really identify it, but I just don't think they're the right one. And then there's kind of an in-between. You look at their profile and you say, you know what, I really, really want to work with them, but as we had the question earlier, They say they want their surrogate to pump breast milk, and I didn't do that for my own kids, or I tried and it didn't work, and I just really don't think that's something I would be interested in. You know, is that a deal breaker for them? Because if it's not, I would like to proceed. And in that case, we just go back to the couple and say, hey, listen, we want to know if you are really set on having your surrogate pump, or would you be interested in maybe getting milk from a bank? And usually we don't even tell them that a surrogate's looking at their profile, because that's another question, is if you say no, most surrogates immediately say, I'm just going to feel so guilty that they know that even though they don't know it was me, they're going to know that someone turned them down. And that's actually not how it works. So one of the other things I love about Growing Generations is surrogates choose first, typically. Of course, it's 99% of the time. It doesn't mean it's all of the time. Sometimes we have some interesting scenarios. But generally speaking, no one's going to see your information until you say yes to them. So I send you the profile. If you say no, the couple doesn't know that their profile went to you and that you said no. So you don't have to worry about feeling guilty. And you don't have to worry about feeling pressured into saying yes, even if you didn't feel comfortable. If you say no and you can't put a finger on it, we try to sort of see if you can tell us a little bit so I know how to choose better for you next time. And if you say yes, the next step is for all of your information to be sent to the intended parents. So we send them your profile, we send them, you know, what the legal terms would be and for working with you for the birth certificate. We send the benefits package of, you know, what the expenses would be involved. We usually give them a couple of days to look over all that information. If they say yes, then that's when we schedule the match meeting, and it's super exciting. So usually we try to schedule them within 2 weeks, and it'll be, like I said, a video match meeting. It'll be facilitated by their case specialist. So it'll kind of be your first introduction to their case specialist, and it's about an hour long. And afterwards, you guys decide, you know, you hang up, you decide, oh my gosh, that felt really good. I still want to proceed. They do the same thing. That's when we consider you matched. And we continue to work on getting your medical clearance and your site clearance while we get everything transitioned. And then the next step is legal. So, oh, it's okay, Jamie. So Dustin, hey, Erica has a question. She says, do the IP know that we as a surrogate have already said yes to them when they received our profile? Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I was, you know, going over just now. So yes, they do. At the point where a couple receives that profile, they know that you've seen their profile and that you've said yes. As I mentioned, we typically, this is the way the process always goes. You see the profile first, and the couple sees the profile after you approve them. Also, the question that I get is, well, why don't you send me more than one profile? Because if I say yes to this first profile, even though I think they're perfect, what if there's another couple out there that's better for me? The answer is, I always try to pick the best couple first. You know, I don't go down my list and say, oh, well, that probably is the best couple, but I think I'm going to pick someone else. So you can say yes to the very first couple. It happens very frequently, and it's kind of my goal. I feel like if I send you the right couple first, then I'm doing a good job. But I only send you one at a time, because what if I send you two and you love them both and you can't decide? And you always wonder, if you go with this couple, what happened with that couple? So I think it's just fair for you to judge each individual profile based on that profile and how you feel about it. So thank you, Erica, for the question. Jamie's asking, is matching only by video now? I met my last IPs in person in LA. It's not only done by video now, but it is more often than not done by video now. Intended parents can request to meet their surrogate in person. Surrogates can request that as well. It just seems like for the time frame that we're doing things, and we are matching faster now than we were before, that it's a lot easier for most people just to do a facilitated video matchmaking and then have the in-person matching later. So great question, Jamie. Thank you. So I've kind of covered the amazing, crazy job that I have, which is my passion, my love, and I'm super grateful that Growing Generations lets me continue to create families in this capacity, since I can't carry again for myself. So I just want to make sure that I go over real quick and I haven't missed any questions. Oh yeah, so Heather asks, do you also tell intended parents when they have been accepted by a surrogate? Yes, we do. So as soon as that surrogate accepts you, an intended parent, we're going to send them all of your information. On a rare occasion, we have an intended parent who says, you know, I don't want to see a surrogate's profile unless she's medically and psychologically cleared. And for the majority of them, the reason is they're afraid they're going to see the surrogate's profile, fall in love with her, and want her to be their surrogate, and then her not pass her medical screening. So in that case, I would say to you, as I'm giving you this intended parent's profile, hey, listen, if you like them, we're going to wait until we get your medical screening back and your clearances before we share your profile with them. So I want to make sure that you're comfortable with that you're aware of what the wait time would be, what your timeline looks like. In essence, you're not really losing any time because you couldn't continue with an intended parent to legal until you have that medical clearance anyway. But we want to make sure that everyone's comfortable each step of the way with the things that we're doing. So thank you, Heather. So I want to make sure nobody has any final questions, anything additional. I mean, matching is an amazing, beautiful process, and I put a lot of time and energy in it. Generations allows me to really look at all of these different things. It's not first person on the list with the next person. It's so much deeper, and we want to make sure that everyone that comes to Growing Generations has an experience that they treasure forever. You know, our goal here is for everyone to be happy. We love what we do, and I really want to thank everyone for giving me the opportunity to pick that couple for you. And I encourage you to always feel free to pick up the phone. You can call me directly, or you can email me. I'll put my email and my contact information in the comments after the live is finished. And if you want to email me directly, feel free. It's super easy, lisa@growinggenerations.com. And I'm always happy to answer any of your questions in regards to the matching process and the process in general. I encourage you to send me additional questions. I will check afterwards to make sure I didn't miss anything. Or if you come late, you can go back and watch the video. And if I haven't answered your questions, I'll be happy to come back in and answer them. One last question. So Kimmy says, is there an average cost that surrogates earn, or is it all different? So yes, there is an average cost, but there's also, it's kind of on a scale based on what state you live in. The reason we do that is because we do have surrogates that are, you know, for example, California is a state that any couple can be matched in. So we have several states, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Maryland, Nevada, and Oregon. Those are the states that I can legally match most intended parents, not all, but most. So surrogates in that state, in any of those particular states, do receive a higher base compensation. And the base compensation for a surrogate in one of those states, if just kind of a flat rate, is $53,500. And if you're in any of the other states, it's $42,000. So it also varies. It's a little bit more if you're a working surrogate versus if you are a non-working surrogate. And what we've done is built in that compensation for your lost wages into the package. So that's something that we changed about a year ago. And that was based on a lot of conversations we had with our surrogates who had to fill out all these reimbursement forms for each additional item within their benefits package. And it just got really cumbersome for the surrogates. So we thought, what if we just include it all? We create a flat rate that everyone feels comfortable with, and that's the way we proceed. So that's the way that we do it now, and that's the reason why. So Elizabeth says, I'll be sending you an email. I'm curious about my chances. So Elizabeth, I look forward to it, and I will definitely call you back. So I'd like to wrap up now, but I do want to remind you guys, if you want to be notified the next time we go live, which would happen to be this Friday, 3:30. I'm going to be back on. I'm going to be talking about a multitude of things, the process from the beginning to end. We'll be talking a little bit about your case management. And all you have to do is follow us, and you'll be notified when I go live on Friday and anytime in the future. I also would like to encourage you to maybe put in the comments things that you would like to see, conversations you would like for us to have with you, additional information that maybe you're not finding that you would like to have. As we set up these future live Facebooks, we would love to make them have the content that you really want. And I'm super appreciative for everyone chiming in today and helping me get through my very first Facebook Live. And it will be available on the website if you missed it or missed any part of it. So I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you all again on Friday.